I'd take that, but
welcome everyone to the municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc special meeting of council on Monday, April 28th, 2025. Roll call. We do know that Councillor Canis is absent with notice. I believe Councillor Pammer is also. Are there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. On the approval of the agenda, there's an addition. Motion that the agenda be amended to add bylaw 60-25 and bylaw 61-25 to the consideration of bylaws. And at that time, the CR will talk about it. It's about the building inspector's chief building officer. And also motion that the April 28, 2025 special council meeting agenda be approved as amended. Someone to bring a motion. Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Pelkman. All in favor? Carried. Before we go to my notices of motion and the reason why I called the meeting, on item number 4, there is board composition, daily operational management, and long-term future. I'm going to ask that we defer that. There's a legal opinion that we are seeking on the board and what it is. It was partially in response. Councillor Derbyshire had asked a question, what are we? What are we really? So I'm going to ask to defer that until the board gets further legal advice as it is pertinent to any conversations we want to have.
So I'll make that motion and defer it to the second meeting of council in May.
Okay,
as a date.
Seconder, thank you, Councillor. All in favor? Carried, thank you.
All right. So that's, we just deferred.
To the second, no, just number 4, Councillor Derbyshire, just discussion on board composition and the daily operational management, but still want to talk about item number 5.
Yeah, so we're not going to discuss any, really. We're just here for a motion.
Yeah. There are 3 motions in front of you that I've recommended, and I'll explain to you. First is the municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc enter into service delivery agreement, SDA, with Strathroy-Caradoc Housing for the administrative duties of financial management / reporting and clerical, and further that the loan agreement for the $1.2 million be formalized and SCHC begin repayment of the loan, and further that SCHC begin repayment of the $2 million temporary loan through the funds in the checking savings account and the mortgage holdback account, and further that any future HST rebates be applied to the remaining loan balance. My purpose, well, before we discuss it, we've got a motion that
I'd like to take and split that, to take the first motion off.
Okay.
About the, tell me what the first one is again here.
Service delivery agreement.
The service delivery. For the same reason as you've just mentioned, we're getting a legal opinion, which will affect the answer to that. So I'll move that that gets deferred to the second meeting of May. While we await that. So hopefully final.
Yeah, before we you just need a seconder, or just, then we can, Councillor Pop, go ahead, Councillor Derbyshire.
It's non-debatable. Point
okay,
of order.
You deferred it. Okay.
Motion to defer is non-debatable.
Okay, motion to defer that. So, favor of deferring? Yep.
I made the motion to defer it.
You made the motion, so we have a seconder, Councillor Pelkman. So call him for the vote. Yep, motion to defer. Okay, that motion carried. Can we still, okay, I still want to deal with item 2, 3, and 4. Motion on the finance, Councillor Derbyshire.
Can I just ask a question? When you're going to define what your role is and how the council operates and what it operates as, if you come back as a private board and not a committee of council, do you guys then not have to excuse yourself from the vote, being that you're going to ask council to approve funding in something for a private board that you are part of? Like,
yeah, we'll defer to the deputy mayor.
So on that matter.
Sorry, defer, I didn't have my mic on.
Oh. On that, I spoke with the IC today directly on that matter. And in a written opinion from the Integrity Commissioner, whether we are a local board or not, although we hold a indirect pecuniary interest, we are exempt under the Act because the appointment of us is pursuant to the bylaw of Strathroy-Caradoc Housing Corp., which the IC says equates to council putting us there. So yes, we have one, but there's an exemption, so we can continue to talk about it here and deal with it at Strathroy-Caradoc Housing Corp.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Councillor Wilsey.
I'm not clear on what motions we actually deferred from your notice of motion. I just heard the first part, but then there's 4 motions, so I just want to see, are we talking about the, I just want clarity on what we deferred.
Yeah, we deferred on that motion, the first motion, the municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc enter the SDA. That was what. So the other 3 are still on the table. Councillor Wilsey.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure.
Yeah, no,
I didn't hear anything about splitting the motions or different votes or anything else. I just heard a deferral, so.
Yep. Councillor Hippel.
Yes, through yourself, to yourself. So all of these things that are being deferred are to the second meeting in May.
Yes.
Is this, are we, and this is in a regular council meeting, it's not in a
Yes.
special meeting. We're doing this all together with our regular council.
Yes. Yeah. And I'll say why I called it the special council meeting is, to me, these are items that are out there that may, I thought, elicit further conversation than usual 10 or 15 minutes we give during councils, but that was why I called it. This may not be a long meeting, but I just thought it needs to be given the attention that it does, especially with the money. That was my purpose in calling a special meeting. Councillor Wilsey.
So on that note, why are we deferring it to a regular council meeting again? When we was at a meeting and we deferred it to now, shouldn't we defer it to another special meeting? If it's gonna take all that time, like if it was important enough to have a special meeting tonight, why is it not important enough to have a special meeting again when we're all here?
Go ahead.
The motion to defer requires a date, so since we don't have a special meeting set, I just picked the date. That gives us basically a month to deal with it, or 3 weeks to deal with it. And we've told you that it's for a legal opinion, so the legal opinion may settle the score. I don't know.
That's a fair question, Councillor Wilsey. You could also at the time defer it and ask for a special meeting if you wish, but Deputy Mayor's correct, need to give it a date. So, Councillor Palmer.
But couldn't the clerk just confirm then, so Deputy Mayor put a date on it, but we could call a special meeting to deal with it? As long as it was before that date?
You decide on a date, yeah, we'd have to decide on a date,
Yeah.
but there has to be a date attached to the deferral.
Could we change that date?
It's already passed.
It's already passed.
Can we make a motion to set a different date and change it now, rather than waiting until the second date in May? Can we just do that now?
Yeah, Jenny, I don't know about the procedure, the Deputy Mayor, can we amend already a voted on motion? I have no opinion one way or the other, by the way,
I think the
Councillor.
procedures by law and your CAO, and your clerk would advise, but it's already been addressed. It takes a different type of motion to bring it back in front of us, but we don't even know when we're gonna have the information. So let's get the information, and then whatever people wanna do with it, that's fine, but we don't know when that information's gonna flow, because there's a little bit of investigation we have to do to try to come up with an answer that they're looking for yet.
Yeah. Councillor Brennan.
Our council dance card is pretty full for May.
Yeah.
When this comes up on the date that's been specified, if the meeting agenda is considered to be too far gone, if it's way too long, we can always at that point defer the discussion to a special meeting in June. So I would say let's proceed with that.
Okay.
It works.
All right, Councillor Pelkman.
Maybe it just puts everybody at ease. That discussion, although important, does not affect the daily lives of the people that live in the housing court. So there are other issues on the docket tonight that need to be dealt with that this does not affect. So I would suggest that we carry on and deal with that stuff.
Diane, because thank you, and then the loose end, sorry, go ahead, Counselor.
I guess what I was gonna ask is if we are moving most of this stuff to another meeting, can we get then the written opinion of the IC on the board once we determine what the board is and how it's structured and this and that? Just so that we all have it in writing where it clearly specifies that nobody's in contravention of anything or this or that you're allowed to be this over here, but yet still vote on funding you're receiving.
I would welcome the motion, Counselor.
Okay.
Whoa, that's confidential and private, that's from a lawyer.
I see, but it can-
I see him, I see it, it's mine, and I'm not gonna give up privilege to it.
But you just announced it in live council.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna put that out. I told you what it was. Sorry. I told you what it is, and I'll talk to you afterwards about it if you want. We've shared information about IC, but just to surrender something from a lawyer to like the whole document out there, no, those are confidential and private. That's from a lawyer.
No.
I don't think that. I just spoke with him recently, and he said you can share whatever IC ruling you want with whoever you want.
That's news to me, but okay.
No, and you know what, I should
Just as a follow-up, like, you know,
Can
with every
we
document.
go through, because keep some decorum, because I'm gonna agree with Councilor Derbyshire.
I was gonna say, we always do a Freedom of Information Act through the clerk and just release it.
Yeah, I actually, Councilor, yeah, go ahead.
I just gotta cut to the chase here. Can we quit this bullcrap? This has nothing to do with affecting the lives of the people that live in those buildings. And so having this roundabout discussion tonight is pointless. We will have the discussion when we have all the information. We will share what we can and will share. And probably most of you know it all anyways. I just don't want to have this roundtable discussion where there's frustration being built up when it's pointless at this point in time. We will have a fulsome discussion. That was the point of having the meeting. We don't have all the information, unfortunately, that we needed to have, so it's got to be deferred. We'll have it.
Okay. Councilor Derbyshire.
It's 3 years of not having all the information. All I'm asking is, there's 4 of you, possibly going to be 4 of you sitting on that board that is coming back and asking council to make a decision. If the board is a board of council and you're allowed to do that, then what does it matter? If you're not, and you should actually be excluding yourself because you have a pecuniary interest in this thing, and it's down to the rest of us at council, then that's the way it is. When the board was set up before through Wonka and all this other stuff, you had 2 council members that sat on the board, not 4. It wasn't run by the municipality. This whole thing is being run by council. So it's just a weird concept that council runs it, comes back and asks council for stuff that they put through at their board. Like, I don't understand this. If you want to do it, why even involve council? You're your own thing, run it the way you need to run it, and come back to us and say, here's the loan agreement that we've set up. Do you agree or don't you agree? Like,
And partially, Councilor, was to have that partial discussion. We have a separate, I'm here with my mayor's hat on for the municipality, trying to protect the municipality. There is an entity that owes us money. So my whole purpose is bring that in front of council to finally have the discussion, because it's been deferred for well over a year. And if whatever the will of this board, this body here tonight, that's what we should live with. So if it's just to say, well, you put it back to the entity, you tell us what the terms and conditions are, that's the will of council. That's what I'm trying to figure out, Councilor. What is the will of council?
the problem is, you as the board have already sat down and figured out what you want to do. Now, I know you can say, oh no, we can change our mind and this and that, but this is what's presented, right? Somebody at your board, or who you hired, or however, has drawn up a loan agreement for the $1.2 million that says this is how we'd like it to go, right?
So can I just, if we get to the discussion, go through the discussion, because you're gonna find out that the municipality, through Director Dakin, has proposed a loan agreement in terms of repayment. For this body to approve. So this, the Board of Strathroy-Caradoc Housing has not seen a loan agreement or approved a loan agreement. That's what we're trying to do here tonight, get to the point where we see a loan agreement that's been approved by council. I think, sorry, Councillor Palmer, you had your hand.
It's okay.
Councillor Brennan.
Is there a motion on the floor?
Yes.
What is it?
What is the motion, and can we please vote on it?
Yeah, the motion is that the loan agreement for the $1.2 million loan be formalized and Strathroy-Caradoc Housing begin repayment of that loan. And further, that Strathroy-Caradoc Housing begin repayment of the $2 million temporary loan through the funds in their accounts. And lastly, that any future HST rebates apply to the remaining loan balance. That's what we're trying to figure out, Councillor.
Could we please call the motion and vote on it?
Sure.
I don't think somebody's made the motion yet.
You didn't get a mover.
Okay, so I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Brennan. Is there a seconder?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Now we can begin the discussion on those motions. Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, I'm struggling with this motion in the wording because it implies that we're telling Strathroy-Caradoc Housing to do something. And I agree with Councillor Derbyshire. I'm not sure that's within this table's, I guess as, well, I'm thinking out loud, I guess as a loaner, I guess you can tell them to do anything, but could it not be that, I guess the way it's worded, Caradoc Housing could say no, right? I mean, I think that, I'm just not sure that this council can tell the corporation to do something. We can ask, we can make a recommendation, we can propose a loan repayment, right? And I think that that's the word I would be more comfortable. We propose to Caradoc Housing that this is a loan repayment schedule. Do they accept it? Does that work within their budget? And then they could come back with a yes or no. I would be more comfortable with that. The way it's worded right now, it's like we're telling them this is what they have to do, and I don't think you can.
And Councillor, I'm fine. I'm just trying to have this council make a decision because it's been out there. And whatever the wording is, I'm fine with because it's been out there. I go with Councillor Wills, he had his hand up first.
Two questions. So on the motion here, there is no actual document saying what the loan agreement is. The loan agreement that was on the earlier menu, we deferred to for a month from now. So there's no loan amendment in this council meeting that we're gonna vote on right now. So,
No,
because
the loan agreement,
we just deferred it. It was in 4.1, it's gone. It's in May. We didn't review it, it was deferred. So there was no loan agreement that came up in this meeting. When we talk about the repayment, I would like some answers on how much of the checking and savings account and the mortgage holdback we're gonna use to repay that $2 million loan. And on the HST rebate, there are some questions on the document that was deferred because it actually said that we owe $20,000, we're not getting a rebate. So if we're gonna talk about future rebates, we should talk about the rebate and why we don't get 1.3 million, we actually owe $20,000. What the loan agreement is, because we've deferred that until May 22nd, so all the documents.
Can you correct me, where did we defer that, Councillor Wills?
Item 4.
Item 4 was board composition.
Yep, and that had the document for the loan and it had the document for the HST.
No, it was not poured as part of .5, it wasn't attached to anything, right? Right, it's
Well,
there.
5.1 has no documents and we deferred item to 4. So we deferred the item that had all the attachments.
Oh,
So if we're deferring an item, we can't defer and then refer to other options that we didn't even discuss.
You know what? You're right, I did not realize that was
So-
attached to item
So
4.
we've got no items to discuss, we don't know what we're voting on because there's nothing in that motion. And we've deferred everything else for a month. So should we just defer this whole meeting and have the discussion later?
Sure, I clerk, I didn't realize that those items were attached on item 4. I just read off that we would defer those 3 items. I did not read the attachments to them. I assumed that they were attached to the overall document.
So with that, are we
No,
gonna?
that's fair, Councillor.
I'll let, as the chair, maybe I don't know if we would withdraw the motion and do it again with the deferral, or I don't know how to handle this, so I'm gonna leave it to you and the clerk.
I think, well, then I'm allowed to make a ruling, I believe, right? The items are there, they're there for discussion. The fact that they may be attached in a wrong place, which I will concede that argument, Councillor. I think they're open for discussion, so my ruling is going to be that they're part of the agenda tonight and we can discuss them. Good catch, by the way, Greg, but I think they're all fair to be discussed.
Should we check that with either the clerk or the CAO before we go? I don't wanna be afoul of any rules. It is, if we defer an item with all attachments, can we still discuss those attachments? Cause that would be a precedent setting for future meetings, and we haven't been able to do that in the past.
Yeah, Counselor, the chair can rule, and I've ruled that we will proceed with them. And by the way, I apologize, I didn't do the good catch.
All right, well, then I'll go back to my
They're,
question.
they're there, right? So we may as well discuss them. We're trying to get this moving.
Yeah, so I guess, let's review the HST document and then and get some clarity on what SCHC is proposing to pay back out of their two accounts. And then if there's any question on the loan agreement, let's just open that up now. So let's start with, the Strathroy-Caradoc Housing Corp, how much they're gonna pay back out of those two accounts towards the loan.
And by the way, I'm not here to speak for Strathroy-Caradoc. I'm here as the mayor. There's not board representation here tonight, right? So the argument, the genesis behind that motion was to start a conversation.
So on all of those then, it's gonna be the same as the first one. We can't ask Strathroy-Caradoc Housing to do something. It's gonna be what Donna said. So the only thing we can do is the loan agreement for the 1.2 million, and the rest is up to the board. Council has no authority over any of it then, based on the discussion we had, until we hear the decision in a month.
Does the council not have the ability to demand payment in some way, some form, so you're gonna begin to pay the 2 million and leave it up to them to how they're gonna pay it?
No,
Or
it's
are you
not.
willing just to leave it sit there unpaid?
We've let it sit there unpaid for years, and where we're at right now is you've just told me that we can't say how much we're gonna pay back, because there's no board representation, and we can't tell them how much to pay back. So we're either gonna call it in, or tell them how much they're gonna pay us back, or we're just gonna sit here and wait and see what we do.
Go ahead, Councilor Brand.
Councillor Palmer indicated that she might want to make an amendment to the motion by inserting the word propose to the loan agreement for $1.2 million. If you propose that. As the mover of that motion, I'd be willing to accept that as a friendly amendment. And I think procedurally we should consider splitting these motions so we can take them off one at a time. So, but I would accept that as and I don't know what the chair thinks about that or what the seconder does, but you know, that our council proposed the loan agreement for $1.2 million be formalized. And I'd accept it as a friendly amendment. I don't know what the seconder does. And I think that we should vote on these individually and get them off the table one at a time. But I'm not sharing the meeting, so that's just my proposal.
No, I'm fine with that. We need to deal with them. If we have to split them up, let's split them up. So you made a friendly amendment to,
I made the amendment.
Yeah.
okay,
And I'm saying I'm willing to accept it. I don't know about the seconder.
who's the second?
That's fine.
Okay.
And then if we are splitting them, I don't know if we did a motion to split them or not.
Okay.
And if we do split them, can we then call this motion?
Okay, motion to split the three motions. Councilor Brennan? Sure. Deputy Mayor, all in favor? Carried. Okay, let's deal with the first one.
Well, it was that this council proposed the loan agreement for $1.2 million be formalized. And I would make that amended motion and looking for a seconder to approve it, which I believe was Councillor,
It's a friendly amendment.
friendly amendment. Friendly.
Yep,
Yeah. So,
okay, did you accept the?
Yeah.
Okay, any discussion on that? Councilor Wilsey?
The only thing is just with the money going out, if you use present future value money, I realize we wanna help the corporation out by making the payments as low as possible. But if we're loaning them 1.1 million and we're doubling the money they're paying us over 50 years, by the time you factor in inflation, we actually lose money. It would be just as well to write it off rather than to ask them to give us like $30,000 a year for 50 years. By the time you figure everything out, it doesn't, I don't know, whatever.
No, actually, I agree with Councilor Wilsey. That is to have the discussion. We can change a loan agreement. That's the purpose why we're here tonight, to have that discussion. Councilor Palmer?
I was just gonna ask, if Director Dakin would like to make a comment on that observation. I'd be interested in hearing, as the finance person, his perspective on that.
Through the chair to Councillor Palmer, so I guess, as council, you have the option to do whatever you want. And I think in this case, you've addressed the issue that this has been sitting out for a while, so you do have the ability, obviously, to write it off, or you can change the loan agreement to make it less than 50 years. It was just put out 50 years, amortized over the 50 years and done it that way, but you can change those agreements to make it whatever you want.
Any discussion on? Is that hand going up there?
Yeah, it is. Thank you. Thank you. Through you to council, all I would say is I don't think we write it off. I think really and truly it just needs to get registered on title at this point, get our money so that it's sitting there so that if we do sell it, figure something out and go from there. That's what I would see. I know we want to see a schedule, we want to see this, but like until you figure out what you are, where you are, and how you're doing this, just register it on the titles so that we have some sort of thing. If it all really does go for crap, then we're at least paid back if the asset's sold. Like that's how I would look at it. I mean, if they need a break and they're gonna come to us for money, then there's no sense, like Councillor Wilsey says, making them pay $30,000 and then giving them back $80,000. You know, we just wanna make sure that we secure our money in the asset. So if in 8 years or 9 years someone sells it, the taxpayers aren't out $3 million. So, you know, if you want to set up the schedule, you can do that. If you don't want to, I think just somehow get it so that the loan is registered against the lands.
Okay, Councillor Pelkman. And thank you, Councillor Derbyshire. That's the purpose tonight, is get some discussion how we're gonna deal with this. So, however it goes, Councillor Pelkman.
So I was looking at this from the lens like we did with the recreation department when we asked the question, public complaint came that the municipality wasn't assisting anybody. And so we asked, well, what are we giving the municipality? And by the time the recreation department added up, we were actually handing out $250,000 worth of free time and free this and free that. That was just disappearing into the wind. There was no accounting of it anywhere. To me, if Caradoc Housing doesn't have the revenue to cover the loan payment that eventually is agreed to, then the municipality would budget for that shortfall similar to as we would to Tri-Township or whatever. If they had a budget deficit, that's going to show up in our budget, and it's basically pulling it from one pocket and putting it into the other. But there's lots of other things that we do that for too. And so that though, at least proves to everyone, you know, that's the shortfall from Caradoc. That's what we're subsidizing Caradoc Housing for.
Councillor Derbyshire.
I get it, but this isn't set up like Tri-Township Arena or a rec department. I don't want to call it a private board because it's been said that before, but it is a separate entity and it is a separate corporation and it does have its own stuff. So it's not one pocket to the other. This is supposed to be a nonprofit that takes care of itself. The municipality is 3.1 million deep in just loans, and you want to get into building permits, you want to get into the land we donated, you want to get into time and this and that, we'll start adding what the ratepayer is on this place. Right now we're just dealing with the actual cash that's been given out. When it would be different if this was a municipal building like Tri-Township, where it was allotted a budget. If it runs over, then we support it because we are subsidizing housing. I don't think our plan was ever to subsidize housing, which is what we have gotten ourselves into at this point. And not only are we subsidizing housing, we're subsidizing an entity that we have absolutely zero control over, and we are only a guarantor on. We don't own the asset anymore. We signed all that over. The board, which is over here on its own, owns everything. Like, to me, until you figure out where you are, what you are, and how council and this board works together, to start doing any of this is wrong. We're not one hand feeding the other hand. You're over here, we're over here. We're supposed to be arm's length away so that the municipality is not tied into a whole bunch of this stuff.
Deputy Mayor.
I just comment that Councillor Derbyshire sees this with the clarity of 2020 vision. And that's exactly why we've asked for the deferral, to either pour that in concrete, that idea, or something else. But that's exactly 100% why the deferrals were made.
So Councillor Hippel, then we'll,
Sure, so I mean, so we can sit here and talk about this, or we can work on this when it's deferred. I mean, I don't know, I'm just confused as to why we're here right now. Like, I know we wanna have this discussion, but we're gonna have this discussion, then we're gonna leave, and then a month from now, we're gonna have to have the same discussion again, so that we can refresh, remind, and get back into it when we're also dealing with all the other things that are gonna be on that agenda in a month from now. But regardless, I mean, we don't need to be having this discussion right at this moment, do we?
I think what the board is or isn't, or, you know, separate entity or what it is, municipal assets, at the end of the day, it still owes us money, right? However we do it, whatever the entity is, that entity owes us money. And I think we should have the discussion, unless council wants for it again, it's the will of council. So that's why I've been trying to push. Council needs to decide what they want to do, and we can't push it off too much longer. Councillor Pelton.
I'm gonna agree with Councillor Derbyshire that I would suggest that we make the request, or using the word propose, about repaying the two loans, so that they are, council's on record as for asking the money back, for the money back. That I think we should agree on.
And that's an agreement, because council has sat on this for over a year, and we need to. Councillor Derbyshire.
Thank you, I do agree. We have asked for this back. I think we bounced it back to the board and said, how do you plan on paying us back? That was a question posed to the board, which is why I thought these came from the board.
No.
That's why Tim Welch put it, like, that was my understanding, was that this came back from the board because we said to the board, when are we getting our money back? How do you plan on paying us back? Like, I guess we were kind of letting the board decide how and when it could go about doing this, which is still in the same interest. I mean, if we go and say, you owe us now this much, and we're still gonna subsidize you, that doesn't make any sense. Like, all it does then is leave you at a shortfall, or the board at a shortfall, even paying us back the $673,000. Then what do you have to operate with?
And that's it, that's the decision, council, that's what I'm waiting to hear, is what does council want to do? I look at it this way as being a banker, or I think you used the term once, Councilor Derbyshire, giving your kid the credit card. When we gave the kid the credit card, now he has to tell us how he's gonna pay us back.
But now he has to tell us how to pay us back. That's the point. This is us telling him, this is how you're gonna pay us back.
And that's why you do it one of two ways, right? You say, we pay us back.
But what we're trying to figure out is, can you pay it back, first off? Yeah.
No, I understand, but I mean,
Yeah, I guess you are a private board. This is what we'll do. We'll put this to you. If you can't pay it back, then we foreclose. That's the way this works. So we're gonna go hard line, like we're going hard parent now. And that's more what I'm asking. Like, if we're going hard parent, then I'm in. Let's set these terms, make these loans. You can't make them, we're calling in our debt.
Councilor Pelton.
If we're changing the word to propose, then we're initiating a
Conversation.
yeah.
Discussion.
Yep, I'm in favor of the word propose, because then the board can kick it back. There should be a letter, a motion that comes from council to the board saying, this is proposed, this is what we want to see. And if if we're asking for all that money and the board can come back and say, we can't do it, then we know where we're at. And also just point out, Councilor Wilsey, it was, to me, in the Welch document, these loan payments weren't in there, right? And that changes the budget. Anyways, Councilor Wilsey.
Rather than, looking at the first two motions, and we can't ask the board, or tell the board to pay us back. there's two debts, they're essentially one debt. I would ask that the mover and the seconder of this motion amend the amount to include both, and then we can make that combine the first two motions, but just the loan amount, we make whatever the payment is so that they can pay back the 3.1 million instead of the two separate ones. Looking at the documents above, there's no HST rebate coming back. We got a credit to our account, but we didn't pay it in the first place according to the CRA document, so there's no money there. If we take all the money out of the checking account, then there's nothing to operate with, and we know the buildings need repairs, and we know there's things that weren't done from the original constructor, and there's retrofits we have to do on the new building. Most of that money, or at least a good portion of it, is already gonna be accounted for in repairs that have to be done and upgrades. Plus you need operating capital when tenants change out. That was nowhere in the budget. We can go on along, talk about the repair or the replacement reserve and what was allocated for that, and a whole bunch of things that weren't right on that budget that was presented. But for the most part, I think we can actually put all of these down into one and just make this loan agreement, if the movers and seconders will do it, to change the amount from 1.1 million to 3.1. And then if Strathroy-Caradoc Housing Corporation wants to put a lump sum payment towards that to reduce the payment, we can do that. Or we can just see where it falls with the entire amount. Like, we don't need two separate loan agreements when they don't have any money to pay them back anyways.
Actually, that's an equitable solution, Counselor. That's why I have Counselor Brennan.
As the person who moved it, we split the three up. And as the person who moved the first motion, I would not accept the friendly amendment to combine them all again for this reason. The way I look at governance is trying to get things off the table one at a time. And we've got three things on the table here. And it may be possible that we propose the loan agreement for the $1.2 million be formalized in discussions with SCHC, and that they're going to get back to us on that. And it may be that we have success on that. There could be a solution that that board and this council agree on, and we get that one item off the table. The second item is another matter. But if we can get 1.2 million settled, then that's one thing off the table. And that's why I would like to propose that we go ahead with it as we moved, and that we call the motion on the first item and propose to SCHC that we enter into discussions for formalizing the repayment of the $1.2 million. It need not be according to the schedule that's in our stuff here right now. That's just a starting point. But I'd be interested to hear what the board comes back with. And we may be successful on that. And if we're successful on one, that's a win. And then we move on to, maybe simultaneously, but maybe subsequently, to the second one. So I would like to see the first motion called and voted on, and then see where we proceed with the other two. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna call the vote. Thanks. We've gone around on this. So the motion is that the proposed loan agreement for the $1.2 million loan be formalized and SCHC begin repayment of that loan. So that is the motion for it. All in favor? That was seconded, correct? All in favor of that motion? Carried. The second motion regarding the $2 million, and again, I put that down there, council, to elicit discussion. I mean, it's a public document that Strathroy-Caradoc Housing has these funds in their account. It's no different than a bank. When somebody owes you money, you know what they have, you ask them to start payment, but to start the conversation.
I agree, I'll make the motion, tell them to pay it back. Give us 600 and whatever thousand, and then let's start a schedule.
Okay, so they get the motion, someone to second, then we'll discuss it. I can't second my own motion, so Councillor Palmer, so it's on the floor for discussion. Councillor Palmer.
So at the moment, it's proposed the way it's worded on the page. So then I would ask for a friendlier amendment that it be that council propose a repayment schedule to Strathroy-Caradoc Housing Corp.
Just, to me, it feels like this is just a song and dance. The motions are put for you, yes, by the mayor. You're also the president of the housing thing. Like,
No, I'm not. I'm not the president.
well, you're sitting as the chair of this and that. To me, I just don't understand it. See, it feels like we do a whole lot of circles. Fine. Tell me how much you want to pay back. So this is what we propose, you give us all your money.
It's just to put out there, counselor, for a discussion. I mean, if council can say yes, no, whatever, but if we've been dancing around this,
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
yeah,
Councillor Palkman has proposed an amendment to the motion. Does he have a seconder, and are we going to vote on that
yeah.
before we spiral off?
Yeah, was that the word proposed, correct, Councillor Palkman?
That's what I'm suggesting, but Councillor Derbyshire and Councillor Pammer have to agree to that.
Yeah. Councillor Derbyshire?
And may I add, the purpose of the amendment is, again, I agree with you that it needs to be put on the books, that the council is stating we want repayment. What that repayment looks like, I think we need to negotiate.
That's fine, yep. Do you accept the friendly amendment, Councillor Derbyshire?
Whatever you want to, sure.
Councillor Pammer? Okay. Any further discussion? Councillor Wilsey?
Just to be clear, what we're proposing then is very similar to the first one, except we're going to look to see what the Strathroy-Caradoc Housing Corporation will repay us out of their checking and the lawyer-held funds.
Yep. No, sorry, Councillor Palkman.
Yeah, I was just gonna suggest, since the wording now is proposed, Greg, what you may get back is what you asked for, is to have the two payments, the two loans put into one, right? It's a negotiation now, so now we can suggest, whatever, so I kind of agree with you, you know, rather than deal with 6 pockets, let's deal with 2.
Yeah. And I agree, Councillor Wilsey, your idea was a good idea. It may go in front of Strathroy-Caradoc Housing and look at combining it.
As a follow-up question, do we know when the funds in the mortgage holdback account are going to be released? I know the board's here. Do we have any feedback on that now that we have the decision letter? I have a couple other questions on the HST and the decision letter.
Yeah, go ahead.
but just
Let's deal with this motion
on the
first.
mortgage holdback, when I was on the board, that was held back because the board, or the lender thought that we would have HST we still had to pay, which is clear on the CRA document. Do we know if those funds are now gonna be released now that we have the judgment?
I'm gonna refer if Director Dakin knows.
Through the chair to Councillor Wilsey, so we've now submitted those documents to the lawyer, so the lawyer is pursuing to get back from the mortgage holder who holds those, the lawyer holds those monies, so they've applied for that money back. So we're just waiting on hearing back on that.
Okay. A follow-up to that, because we sent the
go ahead.
documents to the lawyer.
Open discussion.
The letter from BDO to the CRA says that Caradoc Place is a majority of RGI apartments. Right in the header on the first 2 lines, which is a material misstatement of what we're rented. If that's corrected, or someplace there's an audit in the future and we find out that we didn't disclose the correct information to the CRA or whatever happened. We put documents, sent them to the government from our lawyer that were not, or from our accountant, that were not accurate. If that comes back and we don't get the refund because of that material misstatement, what happens on that? Does that get covered under errors and omissions insurance? Does BDO take fault for doing that? Did they get bad information from staff? I just want to make sure we cover off that point, because if the lawyer's looking at it and they see that we applied to CRA and put incorrect information on it, that's a whole different thing. So.
Yeah, Director Dakin, I was writing a note.
So currently, through the chair to Councillor Wilsey, so currently, Caradoc Caradoc Place has no standing legally with CRA when it comes to HST, other than the documents that we've just received, which shows that we are actually, CRA is acknowledging by those documents that we apply, that we qualify for a public sector, a public body sector rebate, which is, and this is going to get a little confusing, so I'll try and make it as clear as possible. Although we have what's called harmonized sales tax, HST, the government still deals in a HST, which is the federal portion, and a GST, which is the provincial portion. So it adds up to 13%, 5 and 8. If you run a business, you get what's called an ITC, or an input tax credit, so you get 100% of your HST back. As a municipal body, we get, equates to about 86% of it back. So there is about 14% that we have to eat of the HST that we don't get back. So that actually goes into expenses. That alludes to the last meeting that was, the adjustment was brought for the financial statements for both Strathroy-Caradoc Housing and the municipal corporation, where they made that adjustment. So we now are sitting at Caradoc Place as a public sector body rebate, which means we get 100% of the 5% back, and we get 78% of the 8% back, which equates to 86%. So they've acknowledged that. I've written a letter wanting that in a formal acknowledgement from them, saying that we would qualify. The difference is over at Queen Street, we do get a public sector rebate, but we are a designated municipality. So therefore, you do that little calculation of the 100% and the 76%, but you need to use the RGI units, which we currently have. The last time we filed was 3. So 3 over 16, so 3/16, we get 3/16 of that back. So if I can make that clear, on a $100 invoice, you would pay $113. $13 is HST. So if we use the current setting at
Chair, I don't know if we need the full technical discussion
No,
now.
let him go. It's okay. We asked a question. I'm interested in this, actually.
Thank you. So through, so if we look at the current setting at Queen Street, on a $100 invoice, we pay $113. Of our rebate on that, we would get $2.11 back of the 13, which equals about 16%. So the actual invoice that we would expense, so what would show up as an expense is $110.89. If we get what we've applied for, which is a deemed municipality, not designated, because the way the designation works is you're designated only for that specific thing, which is the rent. That's it. So we only qualify for that. If we move to a deemed municipality, i.e. just like the municipality itself, on that same invoice, so we still get the 113, so you get an invoice for $113 being the HST, we would get $11.24 back. So the expense would be $101.76. So the difference here that we're talking is about $9 that we would get on $100 back if we had the proper designation, I guess, from CRA. So we've applied to get the full 86% back, that's what we got back on our rebate that we applied for. So therefore, what we need to do is we need to wait just to hear we get that official document letter from them giving us that full amount, because currently we have to file on Queen Street using the old rebate.
Okay, thanks. Councilor Woolsey.
So that was part of it, and thank you for the detailed discussion. It was good. But the question I had was on the BDO letter to the CRA. I'm going to read the first letter of it here. Just the first couple lines straight from this letter. Our clients, Caradoc Housing Corporation, a not-for-profit corporation who is a non-registrant constructed a multi-unit residential complex with the majority of the units being rent geared to income at 22645 Adelaide Road, Mount Bridges, Ontario. So, right there, that's a material misstatement. It's got their own corporation name. It was April 15th, 2024, so maybe it was the right corporation name, maybe that was before we changed it. But it is not a majority of rent geared to income. There is 0 rent geared to income in that building. So when this goes to the lawyer and they see that there's a misstatement in the first section, does that change the CRA decision? And then while we're talking about the GST, or the HST, when we look back at the other one, with the payment schedule, or is that the notice of assessment, when you open that up, it says that our prior balance before we got the $1.366 million credit was $1.38 million. So that means we didn't pay when the CRA assessed us initially. So this is the second part of the question, is I don't know how we were ever gonna use that 1.3 million to pay back the 2 million when we already owed it to CRA because we didn't pay it in the first place. So those are my 2 questions. I don't know if anyone in the room can answer those ones, but I just wonder what happens with the material misstatement and how we're gonna use the 1.3 million to pay back the 2 when we owed it to the CRA.
I just wonder, Director Dakin, if you could, just for clarity for us and come report back on that.
So, through the chair to Councillor Wilsey, so the material misstatement, whether they're RGI or not, I guess is a moot point in the sense that we've already got our ruling from them on our money coming back. That was made by the BDO. We didn't say that this was it. In fact, we provided them with the information that I think 17 of the units in the new building are affordable, and the balance are at market rent. So I don't know about, that would obviously be a question for BDO on that one. As far as the rent coming back, this is just basically on the construction. We haven't even applied for any of the expenses yet for 2024 or 2025 yet, because this is just on the first building. This is just the building of the actual building itself.
Okay. Right, move for that one.
And just,
Yeah,
sorry,
go ahead.
I might take a little liberty to address the 19,000 in interest. We've also applied to have that removed because we submitted both documents at the same time, and therefore it was a decision for CRA to delay the rebate, and based on that delay, it was their mistake, not a mistake, but it was their choosing to delay that, and that's what caused that. So we've also applied to have that removed as well.
Okay, Councillor Derbyshire.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
The second part of my question that didn't get answered. And then,
Sorry, the only thing I can say, because just Councillor, just the word, that's HST rebates, right? Is it?
Yeah,
Is it pertinent
It
though
is.
to the motion, the second one? That's okay, if it is, if you tell me.
Oh.
But we're dealing with we have a second motion for an SHC begin repayment of the $2 million.
Yeah, and I guess the only question is how can the 1.3 million both pay back the HST outstanding balance and the $2 million loan with the same?
I don't mind the question, just is it pertinent to the vote?
I don't know which one it would fall under, so.
Okay, so why don't we bring that motion to a vote?
Mine is
Yeah,
about
go ahead,
HST.
Councillor, yeah.
I just had a question when we talk about future HST getting paid back. Oh, we're not on that motion?
No, I'm just
Oh,
trying to deal
sorry,
with
we're still on.
No, I'm trying to deal with, letting Councillor Wilsey ask his question. So there's a second motion in front of you, that SHC.
Repayment, yeah, that's
The
the,
repayment.
yeah, but it says, aren't we gonna use more different funds or no? All right.
So,
On this one then, one other.
yeah, okay, go ahead, Councillor, just trying to get this one moved.
Yeah, no, it's still on this one on the mortgage.
Okay, that's fine, yep.
We sent the documents off to the lawyer, and I guess we're gonna have to wait to see what the lawyer says, because, and I guess part of the detailed description that we got from the director was that we get a bonus HST reduction because we have RGI units, in addition to what the major one was. So if that changes, that may change the rebate. So I don't know what that comes into and how that, because actually, depending on I'm not sure what the direct discount is, but is that 362, that might actually be 18% of the or the 1.3 million. Not quite that, but just quick math. But anyways, if we're gonna figure out what comes back on that anyways, the lawyer might not release that hold because our document wasn't correct to the CRA, and they might ask us to refile. Plus, things can be audited for up to 7 years, so I have some concerns there.
We'll bring it to the board. So let's vote on the second motion. So the motion is SHC, propose repayment of the $2 million temporary loan through the funds of the following two accounts. All in favor of the motion? Okay, and then go to the third one, any future HST rebates be applied to the remaining loan balance. So Greg, is there your questions? I was getting you there, I just wanna make sure it was in the right place.
I'll just keep it simple. Looking at the HST form, how can the HST refund repay both the municipality and the outstanding CRA balance? Because it's been said for years that the 1.3 million was gonna come back and offset part of that $2 million loan.
Yeah.
And now I see that it's paying a prior balance of the CRA, and just want an explanation how this money can be applied in both
Yeah,
ways.
do you mind just do one thing, cause I need someone to bring that motion. If it's not a motion, Counselor, then it's someone to bring a motion.
I'll make a motion that we request the Strathroy-Caradoc Housing Corporation to use future HST because we can't direct the board.
Okay,
But
that's
direct
fine.
future ones
Request? Okay,
to
that's fine.
repay their loans.
Okay, seconder of that motion, Counselor Pammer. I almost made you deputy mayor there, you want that title? Counselor Derbyshire.
So my question is, when I look at the HST statement, and we owed them I'm just gonna use easy numbers, 1.3.
Yep.
So we owed 1.3, we got 1.3 back. Does that mean we did not pay them the 1.3? And is this what we do then? We actually just take the HST off our invoice, so there's actually, the rebate will only ever cover what we've collected. So, but we actually aren't collecting it and giving it to the CRA and getting it back. Like, somewhere along the line here, something doesn't make sense when we owe them this much. That means we haven't paid it, but we get credited, so then it's essentially a loss, or a wash, right? So there will be no future rebates because we're not actually paying them, it's all paper money, for lack of a better term.
Director Dakin nodding his head vociferously.
Through the chair to Councillor Derbyshire, so the original 1.3 that you're seeing the documents for is for self-claiming that we, it's a self-assessment of the HST that should be paid because the day occupancy happened, we bought that building. It was owned by, technically I guess, it was owned by Southside as they're building it, and then we take ownership. And when we take ownership, then we have to self-assess. Very similar to any other business. If you use, I would assume, let me not say, I would assume if you raise a cattle, and then you use that for your own purposes, you need to self-assess on what the HST would have been had you sold that cow. So same thing takes place here. We have to self-assess on the building that we just bought. We then apply for a rebate for the money that we technically should have paid them, which we did. We now have that documentation in hand. So now we've taken those two documents. Here's what you were assessed. They agreed that we were assessed at the 3.9. You look at the one document shows what we were assessed at. And then the second document shows what our rebate was, which is what we assessed at. So it's a 0. So at the end of the day, that's just that transaction, one transaction. What we're now looking at is HST rebates where we don't collect any HST on rent. There is no HST on rent. So we're not paying the government any money. We are applying the expenses that we incurred to make the rent, we now can apply HST on.
No. Let me.
No, go ahead.
Ask one more thing here. So I pay HST all the year through because I'm a farmer. They give me back HST. right? I don't just get to say, oh, this is how much HST, I've already paid it, right? So really and truly, the money is gone, the government is giving me back my money. On this here, what we're trying to say is that on our expenses, we're paying the HST. So then we will get a rebate and a check, is what you're saying. We don't go, we're supposed to owe you this much money off of this, give us a rebate, but we haven't paid it. Like, I guess that's where I'm worried with this whole thing here, even on the building. The Southside Group owned the building and built it, right? There should have been HST attached to the building, which we should have paid when we purchased it. Like, I guess that was my understanding of the rebate.
Yeah,
So through the chair to Councilor Derbyshire, the lion's share of the HST that we paid on building that we're getting back is the money that we paid the South Side to have that built. So it's,
So,
just
hold
off
on,
the
that
top of my
question.
head-
one more, don't let him go.
just off the top of my head, about 1.1 million of HST was paid to Southside because of the bills that we incurred.
Well then,
Go ahead.
okay, so then we should get 1.1 plus 1.3 back. The 1.3 should be covered in this document. If we paid them, they should have paid CRA, the HST, and we should be getting 1.1 back. Right now, CRA is saying nobody paid any HST on this building. Yes, you should have paid 1.3. This is what you owe us. This is what we're gonna say you paid it. Like somewhere here now, you've got some big problems if we paid HST the South Side and South Side didn't pay CRA and we're now getting penalized by CRA for not paying HST. So this here, like this is where this thing is a mess that needs to be sorted out a heck of a lot better than here start paying us money. Like,
I don't know if you want to comment anything.
So, whether Southside paid the government or not is not my problem. But what we're doing is because it's as if we sold, so the self-assessment in February of 2024 was based on the fact that we now have occupancy and we're gonna be using that building to generate income.
but the HST is paid on the building of the building. If we paid the Southside Group the HST on that building, then we get a rebate, an actual check in hand, thank you CRA.
Which
We didn't,
which
CRA
we
said nobody's paid on this building. That's why we owe 1.3 million.
I understand what
Right,
you're
no one had paid on that building. We paid on construction costs is what we paid on, right?
Right.
But the construction are to build the building. So then again, we got hit twice with HST? Is that what we're saying here?
No, it's just, if you build a brand new home, you're going to pay for the final sale on that house. The difference is that's what we're doing here because we're now taking ownership of that. So we're buying the building.
I wonder, just, it's a pertinent point, Councilor, we wonder if you go offline with Councilor Derbyshire or explain it.
But
Okay, go ahead, Bo, one
if
more.
we pay the costs all the way along and the HST's included, we're buying the building one piece at a time, Johnny Cash style, right? So at the end of the day, I build a house. If I pay all the way along, yes, there's HST. I don't then at the end go, oh, I owe you another big lump sum of HST because you finished my house. I've paid the construction all the way along. I've paid HST on the construction. I don't then repay HST on the total amount of my house, which is what this is sounding like. Either we paid HST through the construction side of all of it, or at the end, they said your building's worth $9 million and you pay the HST on $9 million. One or the other. But if we paid HST all the way along and then paid another lump sum on top of the building to purchase it, we already paid to build it.
Through the chair.
One more correct, I understand what Councilor is saying. I do.
No, so exactly that. And so the rebate that we're trying to get back so that we come out net zero is the money that we've paid Southside, right? So we say this is what the building's worth, this is the GST that we owe the government. And now what we've done is applied the rebate because we've already paid, as you said, we've already paid the lion's share of that, 1.1 million, to Southside alone, and then there was other things that were added in to come to the 1.3. If you look at the documentation, I can show you the documentation and how the
Why
calculation
don't you
works.
take it offline? It's a fair question, and if there's a problem, I'm sure we'll bring it up.
But,
All right,
Go ahead.
on that then, so I'll accept that if we paid all the way through Southside, we get the credit for this. This credit makes sense with the zero back because we already paid Southside. I don't know why we're not applying for the other HST we paid, but I'm not gonna go into that. My question I've got, which is still the one from the last point, is if we knew that we'd already paid Southside the HST and that the CRA is saying we owe them 1.3 million and we're asking for a credit of 1.3 million, how can the 1.3 million that we owe CRA also be applied to the $2 million loan? Because I'm missing that part, how the money that we're getting back from the CRA can pay the CRA balance to get that back to zero and also pay our $2 million loan, because that's how it was been presented to the Caradoc board while I was on it and council for the last 2 years. I need to understand that.
And not to put Director Dakin on that, Paul, I think these are pertinent points, they're okay, and then we'll move along, because they are important and I'm listening to them.
So the money that is coming back is now based, we're waiting on the designation. So once we get the designation, then we know how much money we're gonna start getting back. As we start getting those monies back, what we've said is that we're using the HST credits to pay back. I don't know, and I stand to be corrected if I said the 1.3 million. I said HST credits that we get back will be used to offset the 2 million that we get back. We owe money because we have a brand new building, just what the discussion Councilor Derbyshire and I had. This is how that piece worked. We have yet to apply for all of the other, basically the only thing we've applied for is construction costs to date. We haven't applied for any of the other expenses ongoing. We pay HST to our property manager. We pay HST on electricity. We pay HST. All of those things added up are gonna be coming back to us because we don't owe any other HST to them because we don't collect HST.
Okay, all right, so we have a second motion in front of us. Sorry, yeah, Councilor Palmer.
But just a correction there, or I don't wanna correct you, but a comment, Director Dakin, you have to collect HST on rent. I'm a landlord, I have to collect HST on rent.
Through the chair to Councilor Palmer, I believe residential rent as a municipality is HST is zero rated. I can find out that information for you.
But that's saying that it's the municipality's own property.
Because we are a deemed, so.
Again, we get into
So
that
there's
confusion.
two different, right now, we're a designated municipality, which means our rent is the HST component. That's why we can get that tax back. Nothing else we get back on. So therefore, what we need to do is apply for the determination where we're determined as a municipality, so we can apply to everything that we do, not just the rent. On the rental units.
I'm gonna go over there, Councilor Willie, Councilor Pelkman. And I'll come back to you, Greg.
I was just thinking that again, it's a wording on the motion that's causing the problem. So any future HST rebates from operating really shouldn't be part of this discussion because A, they're not gonna be sizable, and B, it would be part of the operating budget of Caradoc Housing. So any repayment plan that we come up with in the first two motions is really moot based on the operating HST rebates that we may get in the future. Where I think is pertinent is if there are any future HST rebates on the building of the building, that those funds be applied to the loan balance.
That seems fair. I don't know.
We're already paid out on that though.
No, there's still,
There could be more.
so we have a motion. If you wanna vote it down, go one more, Greg. Then we're gonna bring it to a vote. If council wants to vote it
See,
down.
they should just put it together.
So, I guess the question when I listened to the explanation, I don't know if maybe we should ask somebody to look into our actual filing for the HST, because when I listened to the directors, just description, if we paid HST and we paid 1.1 million to Southside, and then we paid 1.3 million again, we shouldn't have paid HST twice. So I don't know if we're applying to get the 1.1 million back as well, or like, that's, because if we paid it to Southside, we're the owners of the building, it's like Councillor said, I'm building my own house. I pay HST on all the supplies and the labor going forward. When the house is completed, I don't pay HST on it again. If we paid HST all the way through, we shouldn't pay HST at the end. So, I don't know if we need to.
Yeah, okay, so listen, one more, then we're gonna bring this to a vote.
Just a comment that these are all valid questions, but really these are questions for the corporation to ask BDO
Right.
who did their filing,
Right.
right? That's who, I mean, we're just guessing here. None of us are accountants sitting around this horseshoe.
Right.
So I would just think that the members who are present have heard the questions, and hopefully you can go back to BDO and get some clarification, and then if later council wants further clarification, then you could bring it back. But I think that this is kind of a circular discussion.
Actually, I agree, I thought that sitting here, that this is actually a question for the
So-
board.
I'll agree, this is a circular thing. Again, I'm gonna go back to, until, you know, I mean, here we're filing HST as the municipality, but it's the board. Why is the board not doing its own, like,
Yeah, that's,
but here again, we're so intertwined with each other on one hand, and on the other hand, we're told council doesn't get to know that because this is a board issue. Like, get the separation. If there's separation, please get us the separation, and then only bring us as council the pertinent information we need. I should not be involved in Caradoc Housing. I'm not on the board. So,
and that's where we're going, just.
yeah, like there, it says Caradoc Housing
Not the
Corporation.
municipality.
Not the municipality, on the HST.
Yeah. So the motion, it was simple, it request any HST rebates be applied to the remaining loan balance.
I just got one
Okay,
quick.
we gotta bring this.
It's just actually a request to the board. If they could just take a look at the initial agreement with Southside. In that agreement, it should state whether Southside was gonna claim the HST credits, and it would be part of their, typically if a developer is gonna claim the credits, that's part of their profit, and that's built into the price that you're already gonna pay. You should look at the initial agreement with Southside and see if it stated there who's gonna pay the initial. And if the board doesn't feel comfortable doing it, there's professionals who can help you do that. But I would say that would be the first place to look, and I would ask that once the board gets that answer, they report back to council so that we can have some clarity to share with the taxpayers.
Duly noted, and I did write a note, I think that's a fair request, board, so. Councillor Pelican.
I was just gonna suggest a friendly amendment to those that move the motion, that we actually remove the motion from the floor. Because I think it's a moot point. In the end, it's gonna be covered by the first two motions anyways.
Okay, anyone willing to remove it? Who brought the motion? Okay. Greg, are you willing to remove it?
Yep.
Okay,
So, then do we have to put the $2 million as part of that loan? Because before, the other one only talks about the 1.1.
This one talks about two.
we already voted on that though.
Council proposed the repayment schedule for the 2 point?
Yeah,
They're just
Okay.
separated.
yep. All right, thank you for that. And again, my purpose was solely is to bring this in front of council so we get some clarity and some closure. So begin the process. That's what we're trying to do.
Council asked your housing corporation to bring it back to us.
So now we're gonna move the consideration of bylaws, so.
I would like to make, while we're still on this, just because it wasn't included in the schedules,
Yep.
I would like to make a motion that we register the total 3.1 million as a debt against the Strathroy-Caradoc Housing Corporation's assets as a municipality, so that it's at least registered on title while we work out all these details about how it's gonna be repaid. Just strictly register it, make sure it's registered on title, and it's not just in our paperwork in our council meeting minutes, that it's actually on a legal document somewhere.
Councilor Wilsey, that's the best motion of the night, because that's what I think we need to do, is somehow get it on Strathroy-Caradoc's books. I
Didn't I
agree.
say that?
Yeah, but you didn't bring the motion. We're waiting for the motion,
I
Councilor.
tried, it got voted down.
So wait a minute, you brought a motion, someone to second that motion. Councilor Derbyshire, Councilor Pelkman.
Not that I'm against that, because I'm not. But before we make a final decision on that, can we not get a staff opinion on just what the ramifications of that are before we actually do it?
Can I make a comment on that?
Yes.
Yeah, I would agree with Councillor Pelkman. I'm not opposed to it, but I think that what if it caused a problem with, for example, the mortgage? So I think we just want to make sure that it's not going to create a ripple effect before we did something like that could create more problems.
But,
Starts the process though.
Yeah, certainly.
but whether we register it against the title or get these loans in place, that's gonna affect the mortgage when you go to renew it in 10 years. One way or the other. Like,
I think Councilor Pammer would only affect it if we ask for first, what's the word I'm gonna use? Remedy on the
Yeah.
mortgage, right? First fallback position. I'm okay with looking at it because we need to. So we have a second motion. Go ahead, Councilor Palmer.
So then I'm suggesting an amendment to the motion that we not make a decision on it tonight, but it be a piece of the next meeting, that we know what the implications of that are. I do not want to make, if we're making a decision on it tonight, then I'm voting no, just on the fact that I don't know that I have all the information.
Okay.
Whereas I'm not opposed to it, that's,
Okay, friendly amendment. Are you in favor of the friendly amendment? Are you in favor of the friendly amendment, Councilor Wilsey?
it's just delaying it for a short period of time.
Let's defer it to that meeting.
Right, sorry, Councilor Wilsey?
I'm just thinking they should have been registered a long time ago. We've been running a long time without it.
It's not going.
If it's not gonna get the votes and it's gonna be voted down, I don't see the point of putting forward a motion that half the council isn't gonna support just because of a date. So I'm gonna say that,
Councilor Brennan?
Can I make a suggestion? Can we defer this motion to the meeting that we're going to have where we get all the information in May 26th? I think we deferred to May 26th, the other material. Was it? We deferred the,
Just second.
yeah, could we just defer this motion to that meeting as well? Just an idea.
It's been seconded, so it's been, all in favor of deferral.
and then I think I got it,
Yeah.
or the deferral rules.
Deferral overrules.
yeah, we can't discuss a deferral, so
No.
it's done.
All in favor of the motion? Carried. So we're now gonna move to the bylaws that are,
You go from being hard, we gotta get these on, to something that's gonna protect us. We're like, no, we're not doing that. But the thing is, if
Okay,
we
we're
want our
gonna-
money back.
yeah, we can talk after, we gotta move on, because there are two other important bylaws.
Getting our money
Yeah,
back.
Counselor, just because we need the CAO to speak to bylaw number 60-25 and 61-25, that are bylaws to appoint temporary building officials for municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc, and a bylaw to authorize execution of an agreement with the county of Lambton, and I'll go back to the first bylaw at the end there. So, CAO, did you want to speak to those two bylaws and the reason why they're on there?
Thank you, Mayor. And my apologies to council for bringing it on late, but we've been in discussions until this afternoon to bring this here. As you know, we're in a bit of a situation, and this is the best resolve, I think, for us on the next. It'll be in place for 3 months, starting on April 30th. And hopefully by that point, we will have some solutions in place. So what we've done is we've approached the County of Lambton, who will provide us a full slate of services, including plans review and inspections, and the CBO position that we need, and will allow us to operate smoothly over the next 3 months while we finish our recruitments for 2 building inspectors and a CBO. And the agreement itself is a very straightforward service agreement, and the rates are favorable, and we've had a discussion with them on the service that we need, and they're willing to deliver that. So it's our solution for today, and we will work with the current contract we have to wind that down. We've already been in discussions with them, so that's where we are today.
So a motion to approve those two bylaws. Deputy Mayor, Sent by Councillor Colquhoun. Any questions? Councillor Wilsey.
Two questions. First one's easy. When does our contract with RSM expire? Or when are we winding that down for? Because this is gonna start the first, so we've got a couple days there.
Mr. Mayor, we're working on that right now. They will not take on any new work.
Okay, so you're winding, so then now the other question is, do we have a budget for how much this is gonna cost us for the next 3 months? Like and I guess where I'm going with that is, you said the rates are favorable, we don't know how much, it's going to cost. And I guess it doesn't matter that much because it's all gonna come out of the building permit budget anyway, so it's not actually tax revenue. But I guess the hard part is, as a counselor, seems to be a lot of things that we're approving, like even go back to the police station, we approved that in principle with a placeholder without knowing how much it is, and now we're doing the building inspector and we don't have a budget for it. We don't know what the rates are. I think council's probably gonna approve it anyways, but we're approving something where we don't know the cost, we don't know the rates, we don't know anything for it, and it's public money we're spending.
I'm gonna defer to the CAO.
Through Mr. Mayor, we do have the budget. We're not paying anyone out of salaries right now. So there's a significant amount of money that we can use. The rates are in the draft agreement, which I believe is attached. And they are very reasonable, so.
Okay. Okay, so all in favor of the seconded motion? Carried. Now approve the first bylaw, which was a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of tonight's special meeting of council. Deputy Mayor, second by Councilor Brennan, all in favor, carried. Motion to adjourn. Councilor Brennan, second by the Deputy Mayor, all in favor, carried.